morning and welcome to the third day of the RISE World Summit 2024 and the second day of programming actually. I do hope you caught up with the opening plenary if you did not attend it on the first day on Monday, the 15th. We had a wonderful opening with the release of the RISE values, which as you know is foundational to everything we do. At the RISE Summit, the people we work with, the people we deal with, the people we live for, and of course in our work on a day-to-day basis. Today, we are now at the second day, as I said, and the thematic plenary for the SDGs. Again, something that has been core to the RISE World Summit, where every year we look forward to the outcomes and discussions that we can take forward to build through the year. With me today, I am so pleased to have with us Mr. Vikas Verma, the Regional Head, North Region, India, United Nations Development Program. Vikas, good morning and welcome.
Thank you, Karon. Thank you for having me here. Pleasure to be here.
I'm going to just say a few words about Vikas, though there is so much more to him that I'm going to be able to do justice to right now. And I hope each one of you are going to make that effort to connect with him and learn more about him. But maybe a few words first. Vikas is the head of the North Region for UNDP, a passionate SDG and sustainability advocate. He has pioneered and established the SDG Coordination Centres in India for UNDP. He has over 37 years of experience, 16 years in the private sector in advertising and marketing, and 21 years in the development sector at UN. I think that transition, and Vikas, you can correct me if I'm wrong, is because of your name, Vikas, right? I think it has led you to the development sector.
I'm living my name, yeah.
Absolutely great. And he has, of course, worked with multiple private sector partners like Sony, LG, Nestle, British Airways, Hewlett-Packard, just some of them that he has done. Vikas strongly believes that the SDGs are the last opportunity for the world to redeem itself and save the world for future generations. What a beautiful thought. And not just a beautiful water. I think it's a warning as well.
Absolutely.
So I think we are here to hear exactly what you think on this and help us to understand this better. Welcome once again.
Thank you so much. Thanks so much, Karon.
Great. You know, today the thematic is on accelerating SDGs in India towards Agenda 2030. Right? Because Agenda 2030 sets that target that we are midway and just have another 15 years to go. Not too much to achieve the humongous task ahead of us. At this halfway deadline, the SDG Progress Report, a special edition, was released very recently. And unfortunately, it says that we are leaving more than half of the world behind. And when the SDGs were conceived, the promise was to leave no one behind. Can you please maybe, share a little bit more about the report, the findings, and what you think we really need to know, and our audience, of course?
No, sure, Karon, you're absolutely right. This report actually came out in mid-2023 and was a special edition report and aimed at the SDG Summit, which was held in September in New York. Basically, like you said, it highlights the problems. It also highlights the reasons for those problems, who is suffering because of those issues, and why are they suffering. And it also definitely talks about the solutions going ahead, and that we can cover later. But, in terms of problems, if I would say, the report was pretty telling. Like you said, half the time has gone. More than 7.5 years have gone. In fact, I was just thinking that we have actually hit the backlog and the 5 years and few days are left. Not even half. It's more than half now. Okay. And the report basically talks about that, yes, we are leaving more than half the world behind. we are still not taking them along. And when we talk of half the world, I mean, if you look at the SDG targets which we have and the indicators which we have, uh, the basic thing is that more than 50% of the targets of SDGs are weak and insufficient. Only 15% are on track. I mean, that's what the report says. And in fact, on 30%, the progress has stalled or even gone into reverse. And these include key targets on poverty, hunger, climate. So the fact is that yes, unless we act now, 2030 agenda will be just a phrase, which will be there. And if you really look at these reasons for the problem, I think it's a report again talks about the poly crisis. And I think we all know about it. But the fact is, we still are having the lingering effects of COVID-19. And the second C is the conflict which is happening around. And the third C is the climate change, which is there, along with the biodiversity loss and the pollution. And these are having, let me tell you, devastating and lasting impact. And I mean, when you're talking of conflict, it is being further kind of amplified by the Russia's invasion of Ukraine, now the Gaza conflict, and now there is fast developing Black Sea confrontations. Basically, these are driving the increase in prices of food and energy and the cost of access to finance. It's creating kind of a global cost of living crisis, if one would say. And this is affecting billions of people. So when we are talking of SDGs, the problems we can see from indicators, but the indicators at the back end have these reasons. But who is suffering? If you really look at it, it's not the developed countries which are suffering. It is the developing countries which are frankly bearing the brunt of the collective failure, if I would say. And the failures in terms of, the investments in SDGs. I mean, it's just become, like I said, we are talking about it, but where are the investments? So developing countries are not able to kind of invest because there is a huge need for financing, but there is huge financing gap also, and they are buried under the mountain of debt. Almost 1 in 3 countries is a high risk of being unable to service their debt. So that is the situation. And again, because of COVID, what happened is that developed countries could adopt their expansionary fiscal and monetary policies, and because of that, they had inflation in their economies. They had prices which went up because of supply chain issues, but they have now largely returned to their pre-pandemic growth. They managed it pretty well. The developed countries, I'm saying, but developing countries couldn't do that. If they had done that, their currencies would have fallen, collapsed. So then they were in a catch-22 situation, and they continue to suffer. If they don't have money even for survival, how will they invest in SDGs? So if you really look at, again, because of all these things, the ODI, that itself, the flow of official development assistance has gone down far below. There's a long standing commitment of 0.7% of GNI. That's not been done. And if developing countries go out to take the money, the finance markets charge them rates of interest which are 8 times higher. So everything is kind of packed against the developing countries. And then coupled with that is, of course, it is suffering because the climate finance. You want to take care of climate, but where is the money to do that? There's a huge cost of transitioning from the traditional industry and the agriculture into green industry and agriculture. There was supposed to be $100 billion, which was kind of promised annually from 2020. That hasn't happened because, again, COVID and many other things. But I'm saying problems are there. People are suffering, developing countries, and it's kind of putting inequality right on the table in front of you. That's what the report talks of. So, that was the report, if I would say.
Right. And that sounds really grave, right? I mean, it's a difficult,
It
not
doesn't
just
sound great. It sounds bad, frankly.
grave, grave. I said grave.
Grave.
It sounds
Okay.
grave. Yeah, it
Absolutely.
really sounds grave. And I think there's a lot over there for us to look up and understand. The other thing that the report says, in fact, in its title itself, is that it's a rescue plan for people and planet, right? My question would be, is a rescue plan enough? I mean, are we even, able to achieve what we're saying, what we are going to do, if it's just a rescue plan, or are we going to have to create an acceleration plan to be able to even make up for, as you said, the setbacks that have happened and, the slow pace that has been moving towards that, right? Given what you've just said. So with that in mind, like, what is the acceleration plan that we can think about? Yeah.
Uh, rescue plan itself is kind of part of the acceleration plan. But before we go and talk about rescue plan, I think we must understand the real threat also. And the report talks about that very clearly. Uh, if we do not meet the progress which is articulated in SDGs and we don't go ahead and change those indicators and targets, what will happen is the inequalities will deepen. And when inequalities deepen, it basically brings us to the risk of a very fragmented, if I would say, two-speed world. One is growing very fast, the other is going down very fast. So that is not what the achievement of SDGs is going to be. SDGs is all together in an integrated way grow. And no one country, that's why, can afford to see the 2030 agenda fail. And when we talk of the rescue plan, it's definitely needed now. And that's what even SDG Summit talked about it. Basically, the plan is we need to look at it globally. We should not look at it again. I think it touches upon the basic principle of SDGs, which is the integration. Not to look in a siloed approach. My country, my problem, my city, my state, or whatever. We need to look at SDG action and acceleration as a global plan. I am running, but are you running along with me? Look back and not kind of just take off and not think, because even if you take off, you'll not be able to go far because there are people at the back. So that is the basic thing. And I think it calls for, basic or immediate investments in the basic services, in clean energy, and in digital transition, which is a very important equalizer and which is going to help in even getting the basic services to people. The second thing which even the SDG summit talked about was the SDG stimulus, which was to scale up affordable long-term financing for all countries. And that has three areas of action which was talked about. One was, there has to be a massive surge in finance and development. When we're talking of, there needs to be a kind of a transformation in the business model of our current multilateral development banks. In fact, Secretary General says that we need a new Bretton Woods moment. They need to redefine themselves. They are out of date. And the second part is we need a new initiative on debt. The report talks about that, which means that short-term debt, which could be exchanged for a long-term, instruments of lower interest rates for the developing countries. When that happens, they will breathe easy. They'll be able to put some financing behind achieving SDGs. Otherwise, they are only meeting their debt burden. And the third is, expansion of a kind of a contingency financing for all countries, that all the countries and UN especially need to create a kind of a fund which will help, take care of people defaulting. So basically, I think we need, when you talk of rescue plan, we need really deep reform of our outdated, dysfunctional, and at times, unfair international
Absolutely.
financial architecture. And
Absolutely.
as Secretary General says, we need financial institutions that are fit for purpose, so
Absolutely.
that the globalization benefits are achieved by everybody. So that's basically the rescue plan, if you may call it.
From the global perspective that you've just shared, and of course, like you said, the interlinkages are so important in understanding that we, I keep using this term zoom in and zoom out, we have to understand that kind of interconnectedness and the affecting that everybody has to go through, right?
Yeah.
But to kind of come to India, right? Because you also mentioned that it is the developing countries and the poorer countries who are suffering perhaps the maximum and who are being left behind the maximum too, right? So given that, where does India stand and what is the, SDG kind of status in India? Yeah.
Uh, Globally, every country is working very hard, and India perhaps is doing much, much better and harder than many of the countries. Although, sometimes when you look at SDG index ranking and then the index score, that may not be very great. I mean, for example, the on the index report, India ranks as 112 out of 166 countries, and its index score is 63.5. But we need to understand that it has improved a lot, and there are many indicators where we have done very, very well. We have changed the poverty levels to a very large extent. That has improved, that's gone up. And if you were to look at populations access to electricity or cooking gas, etc., because of the kind of policies of the government, and even demand for family planning, that has been very, very successful in India, and many such things. But I would like to talk about one of the things which this particular report talked of. It's called the spillover score, which India is the highest. It is 99.4. So what does that mean? Let me just explain to you. So the higher score basically means that the country is causing more positive points and fewer negative points. That the spillover effect of positive points is a lot more and the negative is very, very few, which means we are taking steps. We are really, really aware, and everything is everybody is talking, at least in the government, in Niti Aayog and otherwise. Everybody is very cautious and looking at the indicators and trying to work towards improving the performance. That has been very, very good, and which is why the spillover score is clear that India is taking a lot of positive effects, positive moves, and negative. Yeah, I mean, at times at the state level, at the ground level, people are not realizing that. So there are issues which we need to take care of, like the Gini coefficient has to be improved, and we need to also, you know, malnutrition is one very, very important area where we need to work very hard, and a lot of actions are being taken. It's just that we are getting there. It's not that we are almost there. And there are many other issues which are stagnating, whether it is the enrollment ratio, and now we need to look at the dropping out of the girls and the boys. Boys are dropping out more in the higher education side. And then the jobs and the unemployment part, where we need to work very, very hard. A lot of positives, but India is on the move, if I may say. That would be the right. Yeah.
That is great news. That is now great news, I think, talking about government, as you mentioned, Niti Aayog is the custodian for the SDGs in India, right? And over the years, they have developed the SDG dashboard, the SDG index, and basically to monitor the progress both at the national and at the state level, and hopefully very soon even at the panchayat level, which is really what the key
Absolutely.
thing focuses, right? So how is this focus on SDG data, SDG monitoring really helped to improve the efficiency and the effectiveness of our programs? Because as you also said, I didn't know about the spillover. So thank you for sharing this with us, because I'm sure there are many others also who do not know about this. I think because everybody says this, that if India achieves the SDG targets, most of those targets would be achieved. That's the huge responsibility that is on us at this moment, right, in time. So given that situation, how is the Niti Aayog and the various SDG initiatives, especially with data, really have helped us move forward?
No, absolutely. And I think Niti Ayog was the forming of Niti Ayog itself, and it kind of adopting UN SDGs with real enthusiasm and gusto is a proof of the fact that Indian government and India per se has collectively taken up this task. And the UN system and UNDP specifically has been at the forefront working with Niti Aayog. And when you talk of SDG indexes and dashboards, I think they are the game changers. Honestly, they have been till now the game changers. Of course, now we need to go beyond that. Why have they been game changers is because, what happens is because of the SDG index, the discourse has changed, right? They have been kind of a singular reason when I look at that all the states and union territories of India, they become conscious of their rankings. They want to be seen good, and it is there in the public domain. It gets written about, and it kind of puts a ball back in the court, being asked that, what are you guys doing about it? Why is your rating not going up? So that's when they are pushed to take action. Of course, there have been many questions on the kind of methodologies and things like that. That will happen. And, what I feel is overall, this has led to very positive and healthy competition amongst each other to show that our improvements, our solutions, and the focus is now everybody wants to kind of come up on top, and they are working towards that. Even, one of the very key things which we did in UNDP was, like, I have been involved with SDGs ever since they started. SDGs began starting of 2016. I came back from UNICEF in Africa in 2016 middle and immediately took up this job with UNDP at that time, where we were supposed to craft the SDG vision document for Haryana. And that became the first vision document for any state government, which was then became a template for other states also to kind of follow. But then what we realize is that it's a very ambitious task. It's a humongous task. SDGs, it's not an easy thing. And at that time, it looked like for most of the government officials, or for that matter, people, that this is an extra job. Why should I kind of take it up? And if we are talking of these such ambitious vision and targets that by 2030 I need to achieve it, where are the means? Where are the resources? Where are the solutions? So I came up with this idea of SDG Coordination Center to help the state governments to implement that. And now that has been going on in more than 9 states. There are SDG Coordination Centers, and many other states have their own way of putting it in place. So the dashboards now, like you said, we are now creating SDG indexes at the department level in the states. We are creating SDG indexes at the district level, comparing the districts so that district collectors can work towards improving their districts. And then UNDP in my team in Haryana, we worked very closely in creating a kind of a pilot for Panchayat Index, which was then taken up by Ministry of Panchayati Raj. And now it's a very good model which we are trying to put in place, where we will know at the Panchayat level what is the situation of a Panchayat. And the whole thing about index and dashboard is, and we also have very good dashboards which are helping the departments to look at their performance, helping to look at not just their performance, but also their schemes which are being targeted to improve the indicators. So they are able to, on a constant basis, see which are the schemes which are targeting which indicator. Maybe they don't have these schemes, so they are introducing new policies and schemes. And how is the budget being spent? Am I putting the buck behind the real required area of improvement, or am I just, kind of doing the budgeting? So this one thing, in fact, if I would say, has been a great success which has been driven by the dashboards and indexes, that the discourse has changed within the departments, within the government. And earlier it used to be outlay focused budgets. How much money does my department need? Every time it will be, let's increase by 5%, let's increase by 10%. Now the discourse is, let's not talk of money. Let's talk of what output do we need? What outcomes do we need to target? So that itself is a very major thing. It's taking time. I'm not saying that it is all done. At the top level, it is there. Now it is slowly percolating it down. And which is why we also have started working on creating output outcome frameworks, which would never get talked about. That people are focused about what outputs at the start of the financial year they commit, and how are they tracked over a period of time. Similarly, I mean, they are going to be the game changers. And so the policymakers now are also becoming digitally very smart. They have on the mobile phones everything, their updates. So it is really pushing the whole agenda in the right direction. So that's how we have also been working with NITI Aayog. And I think this is the thing now in the right direction. When we talk of SDG acceleration, I feel we are there as a base. We have built the foundation. Now we need to really ramp up. And now, because the way India is growing in terms of the economic heft we have, it'll really be next 2-3 years are going to be very, very important for us. We will see large term investments as well as the results of those investments coming up.
So, two things to that, Vikas. Number one is, of course, the SDG financing is a very critical thing. And we do need to get more innovative ways of getting funding into that. But as part of that innovation, my other thought would be to suggest is there's a lot that can be done with non-financial resources, So what is it that we can potentially encourage, maybe not just private sector, but I think every single person who can be invested in the SDGs to kind of come forward with the resources that they have to make those change, right? Because that's also going to contribute to it. And we are going to be talking about localizing SDGs later today, because today is the SDG thematic. And of course, we'll talk about that more from a sectoral and specific SDG point of view. But I think the whole concept of tangible and intangible resources is also something for us to kind of maybe push and make people realize, because people don't really think of it in those terms, in that sense, right? The second is, of course, what you spoke about, the localizing, the panchayat level, and how can we take it down to the ground, which again goes back to the responsibility of everybody, right? It doesn't matter who you are, right down to the last person on the ground in the remotest part of India. I think each one of us have that responsibility, do something and adopt it, So I think these are some things which I feel that perhaps we need to emphasize a little bit more. I think the third thing that you said with the data piece is it's not only the government officials who are becoming more savvy with tech, but I think there's a lot more entrepreneurs who are now thinking in terms of social innovation. Who are now incorporating circular economy, circularity, climate smart has become part of their jargon and their language and their terminologies. Something which, people would always keep the two things separate, right? Oh, social and sustainable is different and business and commerce is different. So I think the whole thing around creating that ecosystem, and as you know, today the whole thing is about systems innovation and value creation we are focusing on the summit. So maybe a little bit on that. We can come back to that a little later. I won't keep that for the end. But to kind of go back to the SDG tracking, and you did touch on some of the SDGs earlier in terms of nutrition and poverty. Which are those SDGs you think that really need greater focus just because of their potential to be cross-cutting issues, or the potential to be able to converge and bring together, that spillover effect that you spoke about earlier?
No, you're very right. I think if you look at globally, the government obviously need to advance in a very concrete way. And which means basically to have very integrated and targeted policies and actions basically on three areas. One is eradicate poverty. Second is reducing the inequalities. And third, which in fact Secretary General says, the end the war on nature, end the war itself. The second part of that is end the war on nature, because we are saying a lot of things, but we are not taking actions which will harm the nature. We are still investing in fossil fuels. We are still investing in lot more in rather which will harm the climate than we are investing in what will take care of the climate problems. So that is one very important thing in terms of convergent action. Let's say in India, I would say there are four SDGs we need to focus on, and they can have a far-reaching effect. And when I talk of integrated, they will have synergistic and integrated impact on others also. The first is we talked about, which is the nutrition SDG 2, no hunger, and nutrition element of that, which is because we have prevalence of undernourishment, and there also things are changing, things are improving, but still, once we have healthy children who are not stunted, who are not wasted, they will have, better health, they will have better education outcomes, they will be better citizens, they will have, more chances of getting better employment. So it has a very good impact overall. The second is SDG 5, which is gender inequality. And there again, we are improving, but we can go higher, especially when, we are talking of ratio of female to male mean years of education. It has gone to 86.5, but it can definitely kind of go much better. And of course, we know about the labor force participation rate, which is kind of stagnant at 32.6. We need to kind of work on that. And one of the things which should go up because of the 33% reservation now. Earlier, it was considered as something. We were at 14.4% in 2001. I'm talking 2021. Now it should take care of that. Third thing, which is going to have a major impact, third SDG is the SDG 11, which is around sustainable cities. So most of the people are in now almost 40% by the end of 2030, maybe more than 45% will be in the cities. And the situation in cities is not improving. As we know, more and more people are just coming to the 6 large metros. We need huge, investments in not just the metros, because one of the things which is pulling us down is the proportion of urban population living in slums as an indicator. That needs to be worked at. Housing within city limits and what kind of housing, which is not adding to GHGs, which is climate resilient housing. Those kind of things need to be looked at. The second, of course, because we are talking of cities, air pollution is bringing us down drastically in SDGs. And this needs to be looked at a war footing. And I do know that there's a lot of focus within the central government, and many state governments are looking at that. And then the other, which again, as of now has come out as not very good, but in the last 3 years, a lot of work has happened on this, which is improving the piped water source for households. And that is the focus already. So, like I said, government is taking a lot of actions. It will show up in the coming couple of years with a lot of work. So sustainable cities from these 3 aspects, and a waste management. If we don't do the good waste management in cities, it'll again have a impact on the health, it'll have impact on water, it'll have impact on pollution, everything. So that is other. And the last one is SDG 15, which is life on land, where we have 2-3 indicators where we are not doing it well. So especially when it comes to the area that is protected in terrestrial sites, which are important to biodiversity. And then there are even freshwater sites which are important to biodiversity. These both are under threat in India and need to work on it in a big way, which will collectively, along with when we are talking of air pollution, ground level water contamination, and piped water being reached, it's kind of climate impact which will bring, and these four areas will have far-reaching impacts on the other SDGs, which is what I feel focus should be.
I'm going to go back to the rescue plan because I think we, need to bring focus. And thank you for laying out those points so clearly because I think it brings focus that is required. So thank you for that. As I said, we need the rescue plan. So let's do that because then we'll talk about the acceleration finally, right? And I'm going to quote from the report this time. Okay. Back in September 2015, it's always good to look back, right? When global leaders met to adopt the SDGs, they declared that the future of humanity and of our planet lies in our hands. At this middle point, these words are truer than ever. It is now up to all of us to ensure that the Sustainable Development Goals are achieved in full and on time. What do you think are the key areas for urgent action for us to really not just be rescued, but actually accelerate for a better world and a greener planet for us? Yeah.
No, taking from the report itself, and this debate has been going on for a long time, and India is a very vociferous voice in that, where we are saying that the developing countries should have proportionate voice and representation in global decision making, which is not there. And which is why you will not achieve SDGs if that doesn't happen. Because what is happening is the decision making institutions and processes are looked at only from one kind of lens. That doesn't help. The point is that the economic and financial decisions basically should prioritize the well-being of people and the planet. The second is you all earlier also touched upon the private sector and a lot of things which are happening. I think both government and the private sector need to, kind of reorient their businesses and economies towards low carbon and resilient patterns of growth. So what I always say is when it comes to private sector that when we talk of SDGs, it needs to be looked at from also no harm to the climate. That will go a long way. It is not just government's job. When we talk of SDGs, they are universal. It's not that unlike MDGs, which were only applicable to developing countries, SDGs are applicable to all countries of any kind of form and size, all enterprises of any form and size, all kind of people and organizations. So there is no discrimination here. So when it comes to the large corporates or the small corporates or whichever you may say, everyone needs to look at lowering their carbon, making such actions which will not introduce carbon in the air more and more. So they need to cut down on that. Then I think when we talk of the focus, when we talk of eradicating poverty and reducing inequality, few of the things which need to be looked at is expanding the social protection and decent jobs. Social protection schemes are very difficult to implement, especially if there is a financing issues. So it's linked. Again, people need to be supported in that. The other bit is that which is now coming to the fore is crisis in education, and we need to tackle that. The quality education. Suddenly people are talking, what am I getting in education? It's not practical. And the way at the same time AI and technology is digitizing and helping education to reach at far different places. But at the same time, the role of the teacher is getting so kind of fast redefine that teachers themselves are not able to kind of cope with it. And many of the parents and the middle class are thinking and doing, frankly, I know a few people who are going into home teaching of their children. So what does that tell us? That we really need to look at education in a very holistic manner and not just government and kind of policy manners. And I already talked of gender inequality and digital inclusion, because in India, luckily it is happening, but what I can see is there's a digital exclusion of old age people. And you would have seen that the digital exclusion, when I say they are even much more prone to the cyber attacks and those kind of scams which are coming, because they are not digitally aware of what things happen. Youth is taking up very fast, and interiors are taking up fast, and now it is available in all the languages also. But these are something focus areas we need to look at. And the only thing is that it requires pretty ambitious and committed action, which is what we are looking at. And I think there's a very important opportunity which is coming up in 2024 now. There is going to be a Summit of the Future, right? So Summit of the Future is like, and I think India again has a head start on that. We are already talking of the vision which we need to have for 2047. In fact, even in Haryana, we are working towards the vision 2047 for the state. So we are looking into the future, and we need to look at a very strategic, we need to have a strategic foresight for future, and not just a very simple arithmetic that I am here and I'll reach there. It's not a forecasting exercise. We need to look at future from the perspective, you may not have one strategy, you may have 3, 4 strategies, because like I said, when SDGs happened, we had very good plan and we were very happy, we were going about it. But then came COVID, nobody thought about it, everything derailed. So when we're talking of the future, we need to be, the governments, the businesses need to have those kind of plans which will visualize these kind of risks coming up. How will we do it? It can be climate change risks, disaster risks, cyclone risks, tsunami risks. How do we take care of it? And maybe a new epidemic coming up. So this is something in terms of planning, putting it in place. And lastly, I would talk about the data, which is so important, which again, in India, we are fast moving into a very good data space. We only need to have more awareness and education amongst the policymakers that how to use that data. So these could be the focus areas if you are really looking at it. Yeah.
Great. Thank you for sharing that. I think we definitely have our blueprint, very well laid out by you today. And I'm looking forward to, of course, talking more with you based on that. Sorry. Yeah. No problem. So I think 2 things I want to share actually based on what you just said. Very coincidentally, right after our plenary is going to be our Teachers for Change and our Rise to Change program for exactly this, which the SDGs is the foundation of what we do with the students. We also have a Rise Club, which is culminating, in fact, today at the Rise World Summit, and students are going to be awarded through that, etc. So recognized for the work they did done. And it's all based on the SDGs. So I think you're absolutely right, leveraging the power of our youth today, not as dividend of tomorrow, but really contributors of today is so critical. So that's something that we are doing. The second thing that we are doing, which again, I hope will be of some interest to our viewers as well, is, we have a program called the Rise and Shine. And, in this, the Rise and Shine is really about leveraging the potential of senior citizens. Okay.
Wow. But absolutely.
Because so many of them have such fantastic careers, and then they suddenly have nothing left to do, or so to speak, right? So to speak. So the shine part is for the senior citizens, while the rise part is for entrepreneurs and youth who they could mentor and work with. So I think you're absolutely correct. Yes, of course, digital issues are there, and we need to do more of digital literacy for senior citizens. There is that digital gap. But at the same time, I think it is a two-way thing, right? So when maybe in some parts they will shine, and in some parts they will rise. So it's a great combination to have both of that come together. So thank you for pointing that out, and I'm so glad that we are committed, as you said we
Wonderful.
should be, to that. Yeah. We're
Yeah.
coming to the end of our time, but I am going to ask you one big question from our side as part of the Rise World Summit. As you know, we've completed a decade. I don't know how time flies, but yes, we have completed a decade of focusing on SDGs and the interlinkages. In fact, in our previous editions, every single activity, and I mean every single activity, and we have over 100 plus sessions at the Rise World Summit
Wow.
that we map them to different SDGs. Just
Right.
show to show that there may be a primary SDG, of course, to which it talks to, but it also gets linked to so many others. So that has
Absolutely.
been our core, and something that you spoke about. This year, we've done it slightly differently, but we're still saying that the SDG is foundational from a systems thinking point of view, right? And to look at systems innovation and value co-creation, right?
Right.
So with
Right.
that being our background, and of course the summit's theme is, as you know, think different and act together. What do you think, there could be some suggestions to do this, to really think differently, and how do we all come together and act for the SDGs and to achieve Agenda 2030?
Great. 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 No, I think systems innovation and value co-creation both are very important and both go hand in hand. And I quite agree with you. And I'm a big advocate and focus on the integration side of SDGs. I have always, right for the last 7 years, talked about that we need to have integrated and targeted policies based on clear data points. So when you talk of systems innovation, it starts with integrated work. It starts with not working in silos. This has to change. I feel that will be the clear, if I may say, deliverable in terms of systems way of innovation, and not just look at, okay, I have this much, I will do this much. We must start, and decision makers and every policy makers and everybody must start, if I'm taking this action, what impact it's going to have, or what positive impact and negative impact it's going to have, so that I can say, okay, maybe I don't need to take that action. Maybe I need to bring certain other things along with that, maybe enhance that action or reduce that action. So that is one. And I think when you're saying strengthening, I feel that we need to kind of have knowledge, more and more knowledge about patterns of synergies and trade-offs, because people don't take synergistic action because they don't know. They don't know how the synergies are there. We are coming to that stage in SDGs now, it's being talked about, and the pattern of synergies and trade-offs is being highlighted as a gap now, even in various reports, it's coming. And because when that information is not there, the policies are one-sided. They are not thought through. They are very staccato, and they are very knee-jerk reactions. So this needs to be institutionalized and put in the minds of policymaker to, before even kind of moving the policy in a particular direction, think of its impacts. For example, I feel, and now we are working with the government, says every time any policy needs to be looked at, has to have a license, a lens of gender equality. Very, very important. How is it impacting gender? How is it including the gender in all its manifestations? The second is the climate impact. As to, if I do that, am I really introducing the other elements which will kind of help in keeping the environment clean or not? So when you say, in fact, think different, I would say that think different from what we have been doing so far, from that perspective. Like I said, as opposed to the siloed approach. And when you say act together, that's exactly the integrated manner of acting together. We need to do that. Otherwise, we cannot achieve SDGs. And what does I feel it means? We need to basically manage goal interlinkages through integrated planning and policy. We also need to have a more, if I may say, knowledge in place that which is the most important SDG indicator we need to push. We were earlier talking of the 4 SDGs and the indicators. More research and more agreement needs to come in through the policymakers that, yes, collectively, even if I am sitting in the Department of Industry, I need to look at gender equality. That is also my agenda, not a WCD agenda. It should become my agenda. It should not be the girls' education, should also be the industry secretary's agenda and not just the education department's agenda. So these indicators need to be co-opted and co-owned by all others. I need to look at that. And so the core principles, like I said, we also talked about it, leaving no one behind. I think it basically, in simple terms, means achieving, reducing inequalities of all kinds. If that is not achieved, integrated working in itself is of no use. So focus needs to be on that, and I quite agree with you. And lastly, I feel you're talking of systems thinking. I feel we need to strengthen national and subnational capacities. That we lack a lot. And even accountability and public institutions when it comes to urban local bodies, municipal corporations, municipal councils, panchayati, there are so many people who can take decision at the local level, but they are not empowered, they are not made aware, and they are not in a position to do that. Because SDGs cannot continue to work where certain people deliver and certain people receive. It has to be collective, and which is what I feel that we have to work at all the levels of government, federal, state, district, panchayat. We have to think differently, like you said, and act together to adopt basically what I feel is a bottoms up approach and not the other way around. So if that gives a kind of a good uh,
Yeah, no, that was very beautifully put. And I must say, I constantly tell people if you hit your head against the wall even 1,000 times, it's not going to break, right? Which means you've got to do something different. You can't keep
absolutely.
doing more of the same and still be, kind of expecting different results. And I remember 2 initiatives, when we had the MDGs, there was the Make Poverty History, museum that was supposed to be put up. And that was a beautiful thought, right? Unfortunately, okay, we are still dealing with poverty. And if we are not going to do different things or try to do different things, how are we going to change? It's just going on. We still have poverty, we still have disaster, we still have conflicts. And I remember our late president, Dr. Abdul Kalam, he used to always say the number one enemy, he used to use the word enemy, the number one enemy is poverty. And that's where we have to put our energies towards fighting. Because if that's taken care of, many other things would kind of fall into place, And so I think that's where we think about the thing different, as you rightly pointed out. Yeah, Vikas, this has been simply amazing. Thank you very much for sharing so much about the SDGs, and of course putting us on alert, for the rescue plan. But beyond the rescue plan, as you rightly said, we are going to have to work a lot more harder to achieve to accelerate and move towards the goal, given the kind of polycrisis that we are all dealing with, which is very, very sad, and also, having major repercussions on the world, right? So thank you so much for pointing all of this out, making us more aware. We will understand more of this report, and I would encourage all our viewers to check it out. It will be shared in the fest portion and the resource hub section of the Rise World Summit. So we do hope that you will take a look at it. And of course, we will work towards this in whatever way we each of us can do, because as you mentioned, Vikas, each one of us, there is no discrimination. We are all responsible towards achieving the SDGs. So we will definitely look forward to doing that. Yeah. So thank you once again. And if there's any last word you want to say, well, please, it is your time.
No, I feel, Karen, first of all, thank you so much for inviting me here. And it's a very important occasion because we are right now at the starting of 2024. So I think it's very important that this kind of collective thinking is put behind as to what is required to work towards an SDGs. And one last thing which I would like to say is that we are now pretty focused on we must have solutions. Frankly, solutions are all there. There are many solutions, and this is one area of work which we are looking at working and focusing on is can we create, and NITI Aayog is also working towards, can we create a repository of solutions for all issues which are there and examples. The more knowledge which exists and the more we celebrate the people who are showcasing those kind of newer solutions is what will push the agenda. It's already happening. If you really look at many of the social media indicators also, people are talking about those social issues and climate issues and innovations which are happening in the social domain. You talked about green, and I think the green growth is the new norm, which will drive both SDGs and the climate change targets. Right? So thank you so much, and I really wish you all the best. And throughout the day, I would also be engaged in the evening and trying to find out what is going on in the roundtable. I'm very excited that you have all women panel for the roundtable. Kudos for that and thumbs up for that. Thank you for inviting me for this. Thank you so much.
Thank you also for the wishes. And yes, women power completely on display at that round table. I would urge our viewers not to miss that because it's going to happen at 3:30 p.m. Indian Standard Time, of course, because I know we have people from all over the world. In fact, I must share, we have over 7,000 people right now on the platform from 60 plus countries. So that's really the amazing convening that we have at the Rise World Summit. So yes, we are also very excited about that roundtable. And also we have multiple other programs happening and sessions happening throughout the day today. I would urge everybody to please explore and look. And yes, because we will meet again at the roundtable at 3:30. Thank you once again very much. And we wish you, I think we wish all of us, right, the very best so that we can all achieve Agenda 2030. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thanks a lot.